Renting versus buying property in Ireland. Which is better? How do they compare? And what's right for you? Well, that's what we're going to cover off today. Welcome back to the YouTube channel, everybody. Don here. What are we covering off today? Renting versus buying property in Ireland. And a really quick shout out to Scout PB for their comment for this video, as this is a video I've been wanting to make for a while, and I said I'd do a bit of research and cover this off in today's video. And if you stick around till the very end, I'll give you a bit of insight into what has caused Ireland to be one of the most expensive countries out there when it comes to property. So this is a bit of a hot topic in Ireland at the moment. We, like many other countries around the world, are suffering from inflation, housing crisis. There's huge demand for rentals, there's even bigger demand for first-time buyers, and the property market is a complete mess, let's be honest. And it's not an easy thing to get in to buy your first home, and it's not even that easy to go out and rent a home at the moment. So it's a hot topic these days, and hopefully we can cover off a few things to give you an idea of what's right for you. So this video is probably relevant if you're a first-time buyer, or maybe you're looking to sell your home, or maybe you're looking to make the move to Ireland to understand a bit more about the economy here and what you can expect as soon as you land and if you want to rent or buy. So if you fall into the category of somebody who'd like to rent at the moment, I'll just preface this very quickly that it's a really tough game out there. It's been a really good time to sell for a lot of landowners, and rents have been steadily increasing. Our supply hasn't improved in the last 10 to 15 years, so it's a really difficult market. That being said, there are options available to you. Now, if you're moving abroad to Ireland, there's a good chance you might be looking to check out in Dublin. So like a really quick insight, the average rental in Dublin as of the end of last year was around €2,476 per month. Now, we don't distinguish between the size of the property, but that's the average. So that could be apartments, that could be homes. It's quite high. And when you compare that to the rest of Ireland, the average rental price around outside of Dublin in Ireland is €1,955 per month. So you'd be looking at paying about an extra €500 for rentals in Dublin. Again, we're not distinguishing on property sizes, that's just the overall average. So it's a pretty high cost of living here in Ireland, especially if you're looking to rent. Few benefits of renting is that it's flexible. You can arrive, you can find a property, you can sign an agreement, maybe you have to do a couple of months deposit and then you're in. And then if you need to move out, well, you'll just finish up your lease and that's it. You just have an agreement with the landlord. It can be very easy to get in, to get out, and it's a bit more flexible. There's no long-term commitment. Now we'll also talk about a couple of cons of renting in Ireland at the moment. It's bloody expensive. €1,955 per month anywhere in the country is a lot of money. Up to 2,500 minimum in Dublin, that's a lot of money, and you don't really get big bang for your buck, because let's face it, when you're out and you're renting, you're leasing somebody else's property. They may have lived in that house at some point, or maybe they just bought it because they rent it. The maintenance mightn't be great. I'm not saying all landlords are like that, but it's not going to be your forever home. You're probably getting in and you want to get something that's a bit comfortable, somewhere to live. It's not going to be up to the standard that you're expecting, because let's face it, you're renting somebody else's property and you're helping them pay their mortgage. And I've seen anecdotally situations where, properties aren't well maintained, they got way too many people living in them, especially around Dublin. Landlords like to charge a lot of money, make a lot of money from their properties and increase their wealth that way. So that's one big drawback, is that it costs a lot of money to rent around Ireland and you mightn't really be getting good value for your money. And there are a lot of situations where tenants will move out of their property, and before a landlord gets their next tenant in, they will drastically increase the amount they're going to charge for that property. And the government here in Ireland has been trying to instill this idea of rent pressure zones, where certain areas, the price of rent can't exceed a certain percentage year on year. The trouble is, landlords aren't a big fan of this, and it's very difficult to force landlords to do this. Of course, this is trying to protect the rights of the tenants, so we can give better rental rates for tenants, but it's a really difficult thing to navigate. There is some legislation in Ireland at the moment to try and protect some of these areas, to protect the tenants, but it's a real sticky subject. And if there aren't good conditions for landlords to go out and rent their property and make good profit off that, then they're probably not going to do it. So these rent pressure zones, I think they're going to be re-examined at the end of 2025 to understand what will the obligations be for landlords, what are the rights for the tenants, and overall how are we going to agree future legislation after 2025, which is when I think this legislation is coming to an end. So there's a couple of pros, there's a couple of cons of renting in Ireland, outside of Dublin as well as nationally all around the country. Next up, I want to speak a little bit about buying property in Ireland. This is a very hot topic because Ireland has very, very high property prices. And it's kind of an anomaly. I don't really get it myself. We're not exactly the wealthiest country in the world, although some people might say that we are because of all the corporate tax that's here. But as a whole, most of the people in the country, we do pretty okay. It's not like you're in Dubai or New York or some of these mega economies where you find loads of billionaires. That's not Ireland. But somehow our property has got ridiculously expensive. So just want to break down, what can you expect if you are looking to buy property in Ireland. So the average cost of a house in Ireland at the moment is around €337,000 to buy the property. In Dublin, it can be about 100 to 150 grand more expensive than the national price. So the average cost, if you're outside of Dublin, could be about 340 grand and going up closer to about 500 grand if you're shopping for property around Dublin. Okay, so there is a big difference based on the amount of demand there is for people. There's a lot of jobs in Dublin, a lot of work here, salaries would be a bit higher. So the demand for property around Dublin is quite high. And when you're trying to get ready for buying property in Ireland, I went through this about 4 years ago when I stopped renting and we managed to buy our own property. You're really in a competition. There's a lot of people out there shopping around wanting to buy property, whether it's first-time buyers or second-time buyers or people who have investment properties, and you're up against all of them. So it's not easy. It's very competitive and you have to be ready for it. So I just like to discuss a few things that you should probably prepare if you are getting ready to buy a property in Ireland. Number one on the list, you got to do a bit of math, okay? If you're shopping around for a house in Ireland and it costs 400 grand, you need 10% down payment as a first-time buyer. So 10%, 400 grand is 40 grand. So if you want to go out and talk to whoever's selling the property or talk to the bank, make sure you have a bit of savings done, okay? There is a scheme in Ireland called the First Time Buyers Allowance, I think it's called. Can't remember, we'll go check that out later. But you can get, I think it's up to about 30 grand from the government with this Help to Buy scheme. That's what it's called, the Help to Buy scheme. I knew I'd remember that. And some people in the economy think, well, that's just inflating property prices because tax money is going back in to help people buy their properties and maybe that's why our property prices are so high. And that could very well be the case. But for a lot of people who haven't done the saving, or maybe they're in jobs where they just can't save that much in the amount of time until they buy a property, it's a really good scheme. One caveat is that you have to be a tax resident in Ireland for the 4 years prior to taking out the Help to Buy scheme. So when I moved home from being abroad, I didn't qualify because I'd been outside of Ireland for 10 years. But if you've been paying taxes in Ireland for the last 4 years, you can get a nice chunk of money, I think it goes up to about 30 grand, as a down payment towards your property. So first thing on the list is make sure that if you're a first-time buyer, you have that 10% down payment, because anyone selling a house, they probably won't speak to you until you have that, and the banks probably won't give you a loan unless you have that as well. So get that checked off. Now, very important, what is the bank going to give you? Now, in Ireland, during the Celtic Tiger years, we were given houses away at 0% down payment, interest rates, I think they were pretty high, and the banks just kept lending. And back in the 90s, it wasn't uncommon for people to own about 7, 8, 9 properties all over Europe, here in Ireland, because it was just so easy to get your hands on money. Anyway, 2008 happened, big crash. We all know the story, the Lehman Brothers, subprime mortgages. We definitely fell victim to that as well. So those days are gone, okay? Nowadays, to try and put a bit of smocked on ourselves, that we say in Irish, like behave yourselves, a bit of smocked. You need that 10 or 20% down, and the bank will then limit how much you're actually allowed to take out as a loan. The industry average is about 3.5 times your household income. So if you're working for yourself and you make about 50 grand a year, well then the bank will give you 3.5 times that as a mortgage loan towards your property. So 50 times 3.5 will be 175 grand. So if you're looking at a property that costs 400 grand and you've done the saving, you've done the hard work, you've come up with the 40 grand down payment as a first time buyer, remember the 10% down, and then the bank is only willing to lend you 175 grand to go buy that property, well, you're only coming up with a property value of about 215 grand. So you're still falling way short of that 400 grand mark that you want for that property you want to buy. So as I said previously, what has caused Ireland to be one of the most expensive countries in all of Europe, if not the world, when it comes to property prices? Okay, so if we backtrack to the 80s and 90s, we had a huge boom. We built a lot of homes. We had a lot of growth in our economy based on everyone just taking out a whole bunch of money. 2008 happened, Lehman Brothers, subprime mortgages, that really slowed down. We had a lot of builders, we had a lot of contractors, we had a lot of construction workers living in Ireland up until 2008. And a lot of them took off. They went to the States, they went to Australia, they went to Canada. Not all of them have moved home. So there's a huge demand for trades, for skilled labour in Ireland, for home building. And we don't have it. Anyone who's living in Ireland at the moment, if you want a carpenter, if you want a plumber, if you want a roofer, you want an electrician, they are charging astronomical money at the moment because they're in such high demand. We do not have the supply to fill that demand. Another thing that's causing the property prices in Ireland to be so high is that our population is higher than it has been for more than 150 years. The last time within the Republic of Ireland that the population was more than 5 million was around the time of the Great Famine in 1847. Back then we lost half the population of Ireland. They immigrated, they went to England, they went to Europe, they went to the States, and our population dropped, and it never really recovered. In the last 10 or 15 years, our economy's been doing well, based on some of the fiscal policies that we've had over the years to attract foreign investment into Ireland. And because there's more people in the country, we've recently went back over 5 million again, there's high demand for property, whether it's in rentals or whether it's in buying. But we do not have the supply. So we've got more people living on the island than we have for more than 150 years. Coupled with the fact that we haven't been building enough homes since 2008 because all of our tradespeople have left, has meant that we have not had enough supply to keep up with the amount of people moving here. And if you've got a very high demand coupled with a very low supply, well then prices go up. That's just economics 101. So estate agents know this, and if they're building a house in a good to-do area, they'll have an idea of how much they can sell it for, and they know that if somebody comes in and they're trying to make a bid under the selling price, they'll just sell it to the next person because the demand is so high. And that's the case all over the country. So there's a few fun facts about the property market in Ireland and why it's gone absolutely bonkers in the last few years. If you're into this sort of thing, please do subscribe to the channel. I like to keep my YouTube channel updated as much as I can, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.